Hi, my name is Nikki Jones, and I'm going to be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'll call CBT throughout this video. CBT is a type of therapeutic treatment that helps patients understand the thoughts and feelings that influence their behaviors. It is commonly used to treat a wide range of disorders, including phobias, addiction, depression. I use it typically for anxiety because a lot of my clients have anxiety. This therapy is generally short term and focused on helping the clients deal with a very specific problem. So, during the course of treatment, the clients learn how to identify and change their destructive or disturbing thought patterns that may have a negative influence on their behavior. The underlying concept behind CBT is that the client's thoughts and feelings play a fundamental role in their behavior, and they're to understand that. So, for example, a client who spends a lot of time thinking about the stressors that come from school, such as bullying or a lot of homework, they may find themselves avoiding school altogether because they've stressed themselves out so much. The goal of CBT for them is to teach them that while they can't control every aspect of the world around them, they can take control of how they interpret and deal with things in their environment. In order to combat these destructive thoughts and behaviors, however, a therapist begins by helping the client to identify the problematic beliefs. This is the stage of therapy known as functional analysis, and it's the first stage of CBT. It's important for learning how thoughts, feelings, and situations can contribute to maladaptive behaviors. Now, this can be particularly difficult, especially for patients such as mine who are behaviorally challenged and struggle with self analysis or self esteem. But at the same time, it can ultimately lead to self discovery and some insight that's an important part of the treatment process. So it's also, while it may be harmful, it could also be very helpful, and it usually is. The second part of CBT focuses on the actual behaviors that are contributing to the problem. This is actually where the client begins to learn and practice the new skills that can then be put to use into real world situations. So, for example, the client who's struggling with going to school might start practicing new coping skills they've learned and rehearsing new ways to deal with the situations that can help them overcome their anxiety, thus helping them ultimately return to school. So, to actually get the clients to openly communicate with me to begin the therapy, I use an intervention that is a game that we call Candy All Around. And what this does, like I said, it opens up communication. The only materials that you need is a pack of Skittles or any multicolored candy or anything. I use Skittles just because I work with teenagers and that's what they like to eat. So basically, I distribute the candy amongst them. You can use this in a individual session or a therapy or a group session. You distribute the candy to each group or each individual member. If you do have an individual session with this, the therapist is going to have to be required to participate. Now, I participate anyway just to make them feel comfortable. But you have each member sort their candy by color, and you make sure you instruct them not to eat the candy. So you ask one member to pick a color. You can pick straws or anything to see who goes first, but they pick a color and tell how many colors they have. So just say, for example, client one has two greens. They have to give two responses to the question that correlates with green. And I have the questions written out for the client so they know what the question is. For example, green, I like to use words that describe themselves. Red, I like to use things they worry about. Yellow being a bright, sunshiny color, I like to use with or use for good things about themselves. So again, if they have two greens, they give two responses, two things to describe themselves. After they've answered that question, they have to actually choose the next person to answer the same question based on the number of candies that that person has. So if client 2 has 3 greens, they have to give 3 responses. And if a client does not have a particular color, they would use the number of candy that the person before them went. So if client 2 has no green, they will give 2 answers as well, just because client number 1 had 2 greens. You have to instruct them that the candies can only be eaten after a question has been answered. And what this does, again, is opens communication. It kind of opens up the floor for discussion. And after each person has responded to all the questions, some of the questions that I usually ask, to kind of facilitate a group discussion is what type of things did you learn based on the answers that were given? Did anything about these answers surprise you? How will you work toward changing or making some improvements about yourselves? And how long do you think that will take? So again, it opens up and facilitates discussion, and it helps provide insight into the client, as well as group dynamics. The client can actually be encouraged to try this at home with their own family. They can generate their own questions, and if they don't have any candy or anything at their house, they can use colored beads or something such as Lego blocks, anything with different colors. And again, it helps with their self-esteem. It helps get the ball rolling, which makes for a more successful intervention. Thank you.